Hello, everybody, and welcome. Wait, are we actually live?
No.
Okay, I got scared. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah,
we're
yeah,
live.
it's right there.
We're,
Okay,
we're live
okay.
and we're the box. Yeah.
Okay. I got scared. I was like, wait a minute. This is not the
Okay, so
graphic.
Yeah, I said you're live, and then yeah.
Yeah, I got scared, dude.
Oh wait, we're up now. We are live. We are live.
Oh my god, guys.
Anyways,
Guys, we're already here with energy. Guys, semifinals here. Mormon Battalion versus MKERS. Bright and early. We already had a banger 3-map series previously, but let's scratch that out of our minds. We got the best of the best here. MKERS, a team that a lot of people would say should be the 10th team of NAL. And then we have Mormon Battalion, a team that I personally would say should be the 10th team of the NAL. And it's me, T-Van, joined by Irish. Guys, we got a banger cast. How are you feeling over there, Irish?
I'm feeling pretty great. This is going to be, again, we were kind of talking about it a little bit kind of before the camera started rolling, but it's going to be one of the absolute heavy hitters versus Mormon Battalion. And you have a lot of faith in Mormon Battalion, and that's not just personal bias. That is your genuine belief in this team. But MKERS is that just absolutely star-studded lineup. They did lose 2 players to Tier 1 just recently, but picked up a former Tier 1 player in the process. They lost Wooz, they lost Kobe, but they picked up Adam, which I think is an incredible addition to this team.
Yeah, I feel like every time we talk about these things of, there's a brand new player, there's a brand new maybe core to a roster. We talked about it in what is now the eliminated team of SSGA with Mike W being added on. How fast will these players be able to just kind of get into that core? How well will they mesh together? Will we see the growing pains going through? And will they get punished for roster changes like that, especially when you're facing off against a roster like Mormon Battalion? This is a roster that we've been seeing it time and time again. Very aggressive. They like to play the mental game a little bit of typing in all chat, really getting under the players' skins a little bit and having fun a little bit. And if you're a brand new roster that might be getting a little tilted from some mistakes in communications or IGLing, that could be a big flaw that Mormon Battalion will easily take over and might take a couple maps from.
It's also, you're talking about just the raw aggression of this team. It's essentially mostly pieces of former Wanted Goons or Wanted Goons ACAD. Xer, Eli, and Toaster both coming from either being a sub on the main roster or being academy players. And they picked up Cassia from True Synergy Gaming back in Mukbang, as well as from the qualifiers where they failed to qualify, but got picked up onto this roster. And again, it's kind of just the heart and soul of Wanted Goons with a few extra pieces. And also kind of going back to that former roster, we do have Tristan playing for Packer.
Yeah, I do want to mention as well, like you're saying, XGS is being shown on the roster right now, and he was being played throughout the whole season. But today, he's not going to be on the roster. It is going to be Hectic instead, which to me is a little bit of a red flag as well for Mormon Battalion, because I feel like XGS is kind of that backbone, almost that spine of a Mormon Battalion. He's kind of the one that rings in players like Xer to be able to, keep them locked in, not overheat, one might say. And so having a newer voice like Hectic to fill in those shoes could also cause some chaos. It could make them overheat, or it could make, some beautiful disasters happen on these maps. And I'm just ready to see what kind of magic they create, because a lot of people might say that these guys are the underdogs, and we're going to see that from these stats we were talking about before. Adam and Xer are these kind of 2 opening frags. And I feel like Xer for Mormon Battalion is that win condition. So we're saying that here, Irish. I'm curious what you see in these stats.
I'm kind of a little interested about the fact that the entry KD for Xer is just so good, and his cost is kind of neck and neck with a player like Adam that, again, we were talking about. He was just in NAL for 2 stages with Wildcard and Sonics. This is a Tier 1, definitely professional level player, and going from these stats from one stat sheet to the other, the only thing that is kind of a little bit negative towards Xer is his survival rate. But when you look towards those entry numbers, they're just so inflated. So obviously, as the entry survival rate is going to be a little bit lower.
Yeah,
the stats are pretty comparable.
I agree, and I feel like seeing how I feel like the win condition for Mormon Battalion is Xer kind of heating up, getting those opening frags, those 22 entries, trying to get that kind of pressure on the enemy team. That survival rate, to me, is one of the red flags of Mormon Battalion, and something said as the flaws for them, just because of like they don't have that man advantage once the post plant happens, but it also depends on the map. So Irish, let's see what we're going to here. Interesting, already some pretty big bans being out of Lair off, but Bank, Cafe, and Consulate as the decider. Maker's Bank is terrifying, Irish. That's just immediately what I'm thinking about, is having to face Makers on Bank. Like, that does not sound fun.
I mean, you say that, but honestly, having to go up against Makers on any map, it's just going to be incredibly difficult. Yes, Bank is one of their stronger maps, but just any map you go to, you are not going to be able to avoid the strength that this team brings. I think maybe Border could have been one of those maps that you maybe throw a wrench in their plans, but once again, that map kind of comes down to gunfights, kind of comes down to individual skill, and Makers have that in spades. So yeah, it's just gonna be tough, no matter how you slice it, no matter which map you go to, and all of these are kind of a little bit like larger maps. All of these maps you're going to have to drone through, play super methodical, and that is kind of just Maker's style, playing slow, clearing slow, getting a pinch on you, and then rolling the first pick into momentum that they clear the site with. We were talking about it being difficult for Mormon Battalion. It's going to be almost impossible.
I will say though, as like a little bit of a sunshine at the end of the tunnel, is Cafe. I feel like is one of those maps where you can get really aggressive and get heated up on a defensive side, and that could be really massive for Mormon Battalion. I know that we've seen them play on Cafe a couple times, and getting those spawn peaks, those window kills, or the runouts could be huge for them. That kind of morale boost that they need. Bank, however, has semblances of those, but not as like threatening and in your face as Cafe. So I'm curious to see the ways that if they identify that they need to heat up as a win condition, if maybe they start playing for aggressive picks, playing towards ATMs and lobby, playing those ratty kind of angles, because honestly, if you're facing a what a lot of people classify as a tier 1 team, you're gonna have to start making some things happen, right?
And also, one of the things that we should probably kind of point out and talk about just before the game starts is that both of these teams have, at least for tonight, just because of availability, because of where people are, both of these teams are playing without their IGLs. Exige is that kind of shot caller for Mormon Battalion, like you were talking about, and Packer on the other side for Makers is that mid-round voice to rally the troops, to get everyone on the same page. So not having both of those incredibly impactful players, it's going to mean that both of these teams are probably going to play significantly differently than we've seen previously.
I also want to mention, because we've kind of touched on it, and I feel like it's pretty obvious if you have seen a Mormon Battalion game previously, is that they love to kind of talk smack. They love to talk in all chat. Not even talk smack, but they like to like just meme around and kind of have fun, which I think is a buff to them. But also, like, just for the viewers that aren't able to see it, in the match chat, it is blowing up. I think they were banned from the all chat of the actual game, so now they're adding the enemy team on Discord. And right now they're asking them.
I didn't see they were doing that.
They're asking them what they play the most on defense as they're banning. like, it's just, I don't know. It's goofy, silly things that is one of the reasons why I'm always such a fan of this roster, is because they like to have fun. They don't take it as seriously, but also they use it to their advantage. It's not just like let's just play a scrim and talk in all chat and have fun. Also, it allows them to get frags and they get rounds. I really do feel like some of the rounds that they get are from all chatting,
No, and honestly, that goes all the way back to their Wanted Goons days, where this team, this core, was known as the people who got into Element and got wins in Element singing "I Want It That Way." Just that is them. That is this clip from this team. So if they can put a few rounds on the board, we were talking about it being difficult for them, but if they can get a little bit of like momentum against Makers, that could possibly be a win condition for them against the juggernaut of Makers.
Yeah. I do want to touch on what you were talking about before, though, of the lack of IGLing, because I've been kind of debating in my head of like which side, like which team is going to benefit from it more, because Mormon Battalion doesn't have that player of Exige to kind of bring in the reins, say, hey, slow down, let's not overheat, let's not do anything crazy. And, you know, if they just all play in that kind of pug style, it might succeed a lot better. But also, Makers has a lot of tier 1 experience to fall back on. And so maybe they don't have the strat books that they're used to with Makers. Like maybe they're not on the same page, but they can speak in a similar language to be able to develop those plays. But speaking of plays that are happening, Giddy's already down
Oh my god.
square and it's shut down immediately by Eli.
And there's nobody to refrag from him as well. It was just a blind walk in the building from an Amaru, and a second player completely caught off guard. Tristan on an island is going to have his head taken off, and the roamers of Mormon Battalion are just running around exactly what we expected out of them. The cutoffs are finally starting to happen for Makers. We're only 40 seconds in.
Yeah, it's honestly a weird aggression from Makers, right? It's not something that that I was gonna be expecting going into this bank. I thought they're gonna play slower, maybe drone in. I'm not sure. I understand the Giddy death. I feel like maybe obviously it was Vigil that was able to pick him off, but Tristan just running in through dirt just feels a little weird. Maybe a missed drone, misinformation, but that's bucking Amaru off the board. They do have the Dokkaebi scans. They do have these Hibana pellets to play off of and a lot of Capital. So, I mean, as much as basement is a very difficult site to hit, they have the utility to start piecing something together, but they've got to work fast.
And at this point, the two people that they've kind of lost are not incredibly impactful as far as utility. Usually, when there's a few initial deaths, the kind of thing to talk about is, okay, what utility are you trading back and forth? And at this point, the trade has gone one Vigil, playing for time or playing for kills. He's done his job because they have man advantage, and with a minute and 15, you played the time incredibly well. And for Makers, even though you haven't lost utility, you have enough kind of time and ability to work site, but you have a double man disadvantage going into an incredibly strong bunker site. So as far as utility, you're not losing a whole heck of a lot, but with this man disadvantage, Hitman on this lurk is going to need to be incredibly impactful.
Some smokes on the side of Mormon Battalion. Makers also have to fight through, but Hitman might be able to even up the odds with a yellow ping, and it is going to be evened up. Toaster taken down from the garage position. A drone there to be able to support that frag, but 30 seconds remaining here. Irish Makers have to make something happen and fast. Here comes the fire and a plant immediately from Bino. Some smokes to hold it down, but the Toxic Babe forces it out. Cass taking down Hitman. That's the Dokkaebi lurking down from Marble. Shut down immediately, and it's up to the next couple arrows for them to get this plant down, but they still have to fight against these Toxic Babes. They also have to fight through Warden Glasses to shoot through these Capitao smokes. The plant's going to go down, but once again disabled. Hectic trying to find some sort of peace, and it's actually Adam playing from that vert, able to support the plant some more. 1 second remaining, but the plant is going to be stuck. Bino taking a lot of damage, though, able to get out and support the teammate on the vert. It's up to Xer and Hectic. Xer, the man that we were talking about before, has the job to do it. Flashbang going through, but the glasses are going to block it. The aggression, the SMG-12 is out and shuts down Bino. It's up to Adam. They have the information on this player. He got a couple frags from before. Are they going to aggress him, or are they just going to play the ego swag? Hectic gonna be tapping it. Nothing found just yet, but Adam gives him a clean haircut. Xer running out of time. 10 seconds remaining on the bomb, and Adam is playing with his food. Some swings, some jiggles, but nothing enough. Irish, it seems Makers might just be able to get away with what should have been an impossible attack first round.
The thing is, they lost two people incredibly quickly, and one of the things I was going to point out was, oh, that's a man disadvantage, but they lost the Amaru. You're kind of just playing that in quick for picks. If you lose your body, that's not great, but it's not all that bad. You lose the buck, and on basement, it's usually kind of a little bit more helpful as far as having secondary hard breach or having flashes or having a secondary util, but there's not really a ton to buck open, not really a ton of vertical work to do. So as far as utility, they were in perfectly fine shape, and with all the rest of Mormon Battalion drop back to site at that 40 seconds in mark, they had just that much time to work it, to work the plant as well. And in the very dying few seconds, they could be confident that they could get the plant down even at 0-0-0, because they had the time to burn out all of those smoke canisters, to burn out the C4 out of the Mira, and just get plant down comfortably, and play post plant. And even though it kind of falls down into Adam in a 1 versus 2, what other player would you rather have in that situation for makers? Because even without, the kind of perfect vertical angle, because plant could have been stuck from opposite side and more Battalion rotated all their players onto CC, Adam has the game sense to be able to drop down, cut off plant, and play the 1v1 absolutely perfectly to the time advantage. Makers, you lose a few bodies initially, but as far as mistakes to make, that's not all that bad when you win the round anyways.
Really do feel like that round really encompasses the difference between a tier 3, tier 2 team versus what is a tier 1 pretty much roster, right? Having that confidence and experience of, I know that I can waste these smoke babes immediately and still have like about 3 seconds to play with in order to stick that plant, and I trust my teammate to play that vert. It's that confidence, almost maybe cynical confidence, that is, I would say, won them the round, and it's going to be the same confidence that's going to lead them into a very fast take of the first floor here. It's going to be Adam, that tip of the spear this time. And so far, they're already on a better pace attacking this basement compared to previously, right, Irish? I mean, before they would have already lost 2 members and had Eli be fragged out, but as I say that, a quick flurry of kills, Eli able to get a couple, and Hectic is finding Hitman. I believe it was an aggression towards basement, or towards open, excuse me, and it's going to be shut down. Adam still tucked to tellers, and Mormon Battalion got to go back to their bunker.
That is the curse of pointing something out as a caster. Is you were talking about how, oh, they're in a much better situation, and now as we get to the kind of halfway mark of this round, we're in the exact same position for makers, except significantly less time and a lot less space to work with. They're still pre-firing and they're still trying to slowly and carefully clear out open, but they've still lost those first 2 openings, and they've traded only 1 out onto Xer. Importantly though, that pick onto Xer, as far as utility, talking about that going back and forth, is on those Warden goggles. So when we get into that late round actual full push, we have 3 flashes in Bino and smoke still in the pocket of Adam. All of that can be countered out. All that could have been countered out by Xer, and now is going to be incredibly impactful once we get down to this late execute.
I'm getting really worried for Mormon Battalion here. It seems like I'm getting a little bit of deja vu. They're going for a really similar plant. This time Mormon Battalion is even less prepared, but they are going to go for a main stairway aggression here. Up marble, try to seek out the vert, and it is going to be heard. Adam, player that we were highlighting earlier. His opponent that we were highlighting him against is shut down out of the server, so this is his time to shine, and here comes the swing, but he's not there. He is! Oh my god, the timing! Eli finds that kill beautifully. Tristan is still aggressing towards the basement with Bino, trying to get this plant down, but with 15 seconds remaining. No more toxic babes, though. Cass was shut down. A couple goo mines to play with, though, if they choose to. Plan not going down yet. Bino getting really afraid of this vert. Something that they were so comfortably holding on to previously. And there comes the swing from Toaster and Eli. Shutting down the plant support. And Mormon Battalion with a lot more gusto on their wing, finding their first offensive win.
The most important thing for Mormon Battalion there was just wasting the amount of time and coming out with the exact same result. In both of those rounds, as we got to the kind of midway part of the round, Mormon Battalion were up a man, and that allows them to do things in the very late parts of the round, like comfortably flank all the way up marble and up to 3rd floor to get the cutoff on Adam. We were talking about him being the incredibly impactful player. Him losing his life like that, I mean, unless you have a flank drone, you really can't expect Mormon Battalion to do something like that. But him losing his life, Mormon Battalion retaking that vertical, just shuts down Maker's plan completely, because in a late round, low time situation, your win condition is get the kill on the hatch and then get plant down. We saw Bino just try to shimmy his way through the breach and prone angle a way up to get that kill. But without the kill just being completely given to him, a round loss for Makers ensues, and Mormon Battalion tie it up 1-1. We were talking David and Goliath, Mormon Battalion making it look a lot closer than either you or I expected.
Well, hey, if my Mormon classes taught me correctly, this is how the David and Goliath story did go. To remind everyone, Goliath was a big man that was winning a war, and David was this 4-2 king with a slingshot. able to take down the big man. And so far, I mean, they're evened up, you know, a rock to a rock of Makers versus Mormon Battalion. And hey, I still think they got some David in them, but we'll just have to see as this bank rolls around. Seems that Mormon Battalion, though, is showing a little bit more of maybe restraint for themselves. I would even say, like, I don't know, just like a little bit more seriousness almost. They're not playing as aggressive as we usually see them. They're playing towards their strats. They're playing towards win conditions. They're playing as a team, which is something that I usually don't see from them. It's a little bit more extended out towards the extremities and then falling back in the late round. But speaking of the late round, it seems Makers is already pushing what that late round is going to look like with all of this control towards second floor.
They're taking it very slow. It's a minute and 15, and instead of losing two people, they're kind of still working utility, still trying to not let Mormon Battalion get that double man advantage that they have had for the previous 2 rounds. So they're just trying to delay out time, force utility for Makers, and just keep themselves alive. It's a minute and 20, and it's still a 5 versus 5, still with some Miras up for Mormon Battalion as well. So once it gets down to those low time situations, they have 3 C4s and perfect sightline setup. It's on Makers at this point now to continue clearing out that util, and honestly just get a foothold in the map as well. They're only finally starting to get a little bit of pressure towards top square, and at this point, you have a minute left. You still have a Mira shutting down almost all of the default plant spots, and you have no control over stock hall as well either. They're still looking for the opening pick.
I mean, and if they rely on these Capitao smokes to get that late post plant or that late plant, like you said, it's going to be countered by those 3 C4s that you're talking about. It is going to be 2 now with Eli being taken down, his head being shaven off a little bit. But Hitman is able to find a second. It's a lurk up spiral. Xer, though, is starting to heat up, able to trade that out and start to regress from Trump. You know, finding the plant back CEO, and the support is all coming from Square. Adam finding Xer, that refragger from earlier, and now it's up to Hectic and Toaster, who aren't really connected. It's a re-aggression from Janitor. Tristan able to shut down that, and so Hectic now has to fight a pretty near impossible post-plant Bino on a prone position of Chassis, able to stand up, get a free frag, and walk out of the bank with some money in hand.
The entirety of the push for Makers was stalled up towards top square. They were burning out time, still had a lot of utility, still had a lot of Miras and C4s to burn through for Mormon Battalion. What's the win condition for that round? It isn't Adam getting a ton of kills, it's a lurk from Hitman. Even after losing opening pick, him just walking up Spiral and finding 2 there just absolutely opens up the round, and Makers steamroll that into a sight win that otherwise you and I were talking about would have been incredibly difficult, because yeah, they were stalling out time. There wasn't a ton of space made towards top square early. They had shut off Amira, and that was kind of it. But Hitman, doing Hitman things, even back on Outlast, he was the lurk player, and he would just find openings across site for Outlast previously, now for Mormon Battalion, or sorry, now for Makers. He's just doing the same old, same old. Now Makers up around against Mormon Battalion.
And this is where I kind of want Mormon Battalion to bring back their luster that they previously have. Makers is playing super slow on these setups, and I would love to get some aggression from Mormon Battalion. Start punishing those a little bit. You know, fight for the space that they're trying to gain, because if they're able to waste a couple more seconds in these rounds, these are easily Mormon Battalion rounds. We saw it on that second round in Basement. They were able to re-aggress the vert because they knew what their game plan was, and with that re-aggression on that fight of the space that they had taken earlier, they were able to completely take the round, right? Their only round that they have so far. And so as they're going to this first floor, I would love to see them start to play more of that Mormon Battalion style. Start going for those entry frags. Start just going for dumb crap that might just work because it's Mormon Battalion, because it's Xer. But so far, doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It's going to be Adam, actually, already in exec, less than a minute into the round, getting that vertical control already in, and Hitman, who was that knife in the back previously, is already lurking up ATMs as well. Mormon Battalion has kind of already lost all the extremities.
Well, the thing for Mormon Battalion is the win condition for Makers on the previous round was a lurk from Hitman, and what do they do to completely counter that lurk? Put up a Fenrir. You have two positions at this point now that if Makers decide to lurk, decide to push in and take space aggressively, they're going to be completely blinded out. And that's also two spaces that you don't have to have actively a gun or a camera looking at. So a lot of these holes for MORMON Battalion are plugged up, but more holes opening up in the roof. And it's still maintained lurk for Hitman that isn't countered at all. Opening pick towards Makers, but it gets traded out by Cassia.
Yeah, it's that aggression towards Square, able to take down Tristan, but that's the IQ. That's not a lot of utility, but speaking of utility, Hectic, able to go from E2, swing out, take down Hitman. He was able to get that last logic bomb out of his pocket before he went to the grave, so that utility isn't really lost. But that's still a big gun. That DMR out of hand is going to be huge here for MORMON Battalion to survive this verticality. And with 50 seconds remaining, it really is just a survival of the flurry of bullets. They're pretty much going to play Cuphead here in the open area.
Hectic dropping down to basement, pressuring on a lurk, pressuring on a late flank, but that's not going to be where the pick comes out. It's going to be Cassia to find another, shutting down Hitman on that incredibly long angle and shutting down the impactful player that Adam has been throughout this entire game. Now it's just on Giddy and just on Bino, still looking for Hectic in the basement.
Wow.
But he's just walked all the way back up towards top blue. He's not even in basement anymore. At 20 seconds left for Makers, they need to drop and make something happen.
And Giddy is able to open up a little bit, finding Toaster, Bino finding maybe some verticality angles from Stock. Going to be dropping down to open and trying to threaten the plant. Potentially sticking with Giddy having the support, but the head isn't seen. Is chopped off though. Able to stick the plant, but the flank from Eli might just close this out. Bino trying to find something, but nothing's given just yet. He's able to find Eli.
No!
What's the head?
The last bullet!
Nah, dude, what?
The last few bullets out of the Type 89, and he hits that?
Yeah, man. Nah, they're just different. I don't know, bro. I mean, come on. Come on. You can't make that up. A 1v3, wait, hold on. Can we just bring that back? So,
it was a 2 versus 4. And at the best point for MORMON Battalion, it was a 2 versus 4, and at 25 seconds, they were still looking for a flank from Hectic that was not happening.
And all Bino did was go to stock from Marble, which like disconnected him from Giddy because Giddy was playing double. And then he just dropped down, plants the bomb, and gets 3 frags? Yeah, why not, bro? I mean, sure. Makers proving that Banked is their map, I guess, finding 3 rounds on attack. MORMON Battalion, I mean, honestly, like, this is scary, right? MORMON Battalion's only found a round because Makers were doing the exact same strategy as before, and they punished it. So now, I mean, Irish, what do you say to these guys? If you take a, if you're the coach of MORMON Battalion here and you take a timeout, what are you saying to these guys?
I honest to God do not know what I would say because for that round, Makers just walks in, Hitman does Hitman things, gets opening pick. Okay, you know what? That's fine. There's an opening. There's a super long angle. That's completely fine. Tristan finds the opening once again. It's a great start for Makers, but this round, MORMON Battalion, unlike last, are not able to capitalize off of it. And that is, I think for the first time this entire game, just straight up man advantage early on for Makers, untraded by MORMON Battalion. Going back to last round, they got man advantage, but MORMON Battalion then continued to fight, got that man count back. Looks like that's exactly what they're going to try to do in this round. But as everything else goes towards them, it's just hero plays out of Makers. And as a coach, as a player, there's really not a whole ton that you can do for that, because in a 4 versus 2, where strategically everything is going your way, if you lose that round, you kind of just toss your hands up. We were talking about the mental momentum of MORMON Battalion, but if Makers keep pulling off rounds like that, it's just going to be so tough to fight back from, especially when you're fighting from the back foot.
And that back foot is going to be even scarier if we get to map 2 of Cafe. You cannot get you can't put your foot off the pedal on Cafe. That aggression, that space that you need to get, time is not your friend on Cafe. And so if you are mentally chalked, like MORMON Battalion potentially could be going to map 2, I mean, it does seem a little skewed that I'm talking about map 2 already, but I mean, look at this defense from MORMON Battalion, already giving up first floor. The hatches are just going to be opened here immediately. Tristan somehow is already tucked into tunnels. this attack just seems like they're all in position where they need to be. It's like they wrote up on the whiteboard, okay, this is where all my people need to be. All right, now just go there. There's been zero resistance from Mormon Battalion so far. And honestly, the only resistance I can see coming from them after is like some C4s and maybe just trying to get some free picks as they get the plant. Oh my god, and there it is.
They did have Cassia playing in that kind of back open area to try to get the refrag, but dropping back to site, playing a little bit more passively. Obviously, it seems like was the right decision because at this point, if even man count, if still 2 C4s in the pocket of Xer and Hectic to stop plant, and at 25 seconds, that on top of 3 toxic babe canisters, you can stop plant and force them into a kill focus exit.
Hitman getting the first kill from Garage. That's going to open up the plant here for Bino. Previously, Mormon Battalion was able to counter this aggression from a verticality flank, but that's going to be held here from Giddy this whole time, holding down Marble Stairs with the support of Hitman. So it's up to Cass and Hectic from Vault, able to try to piece something together, but all they're piecing together is some shots to the dome from the DMR of Dokkaebi. Adam, with a swing of the Para, able to shut it down, and MKERS is consuming Mormon Battalion's numbers. And I mean, maybe David and Goliath was really just a myth.
You would not say that in front of them. You would not say that to their faces.
In front of whose faces?
That is shameful. The Mormons! The Mormon Battalion! Either way, MKERS finding the opening for the first time in this entire game, and even as Mormon Battalion are able to fight their way back into an even man count with a lot of post-plant utility, the flanks and the continued pinch aggression out of MKERS at the very end, they still had, even as plant was going down, they had complete control over Garage, and that late round cutoff for them absolutely worked out perfectly, because Xer, I think it was Xer, walking up and trying to throw a C4 at the very end, just got completely cut off by Giddy, and the rest of the post-plant utility to try to stop it completely fell apart for Mormon Battalion. MKERS up 4-1 and really starting to run away with this game.
I mean, honestly, at this point, Mormon Battalion needs to start praying and finding some miracle. And I think that miracle, if we're looking at the attacking side here, is probably just going to be Xer going crazy on Finka. Like, that's something that we've seen them do a couple times. I'm remembering, I don't quite remember who against, but on Skyscraper, Xer just adrenaline surging and just open fragging and just killing everyone and everything that he sees, mowing them down. That's honestly what I need Mormon Battalion to do in ASAP. We're starting to see the holes, their flaws really be apparent with their lack of XG. They just don't have this mid-round on-the-fly decision-making that you would usually have with an IGL like XG. And I don't want to say that they're only failing because of that, but that is such an important factor of Rainbow, especially in this competitive setting, especially against a team like MKERS, who are willing to make these on-the-fly movements, try to play this really slow setup. If you don't have somebody like specialized and designated to try to read the playbook of MKERS, then you're just going to be left behind in the dust.
Yeah, player for player, and as far as experience, Giddy, Tristan, and Adam all have that either almost T1 in Tristan and Giddy, or actually legitimately T1 experience in Adam. So when you're going IGL-less, when you're going straight up for kills, it seems like Adam and MKERS are just making it happen in the 50-50s.
Large drone is going to be knocking Cass out of the position there behind the deployable shield and quickly shut down with Adam playing from closet. It's going to be a little bit of damage, and it's actually going to be shut down with Xer finding two. The miracle that we needed. I prayed, I guess, me saying it into the air, the universe, and Xer might be just the prophet. Shutting down one more with Hectic. SMG-11. Hitman, though, somebody that's been clutching quite a couple rounds here, was able to trade out Hectic away and might be able to get two more. Tristan has one more Flores drone to play with and a drone. Might be able to piece them together, but so far Mormon Battalion hasn't given them any freebies. It's looking like Xer is saying, hey, peek off my angle, and Toaster's going to give it away. So as soon as I say that they're not giving away the freebies, it's given out. Hey, the Lord giveth and he taketh away, it seems. Tristan throwing out a flash, baiting Exer into the spot that he needs, getting some good damage. And I mean, a UMP versus an AR, not the odds that I would really want to take if I'm a Mormon Battalion fan. Some bobbles heads from Exer, but nothing even gonna touch Tristan. Looking like Solomon on the wall here. Exer taken down, and a great round here for Makers.
5-1 scoreline as we go on to the defensive side. Makers only need 2 to just completely shatter the hopes of Mormon Battalion on Bank. We were talking about it being a strong map. After the first 2 rounds, having it be 1-1, we were thinking, oh, we might see a bit of a slugfest, a bit of a back and forth. You know, both these teams have lost their IGL. Maybe they're so even. But as the next 4 rounds go towards Makers, it seems very clear that on an individual level, even in a man disadvantage, even in 1vx scenarios, time after time, Makers are just able to put it together, put the round on their backs, and shatter every hold that Mormon Battalion have brought out against them.
I mean, at this point, it just feels like they're playing terror. Like that round, that last 1v2 looked like he was playing T-Hunt, right? Like the endless drill of like having the red ping on them and be like, all right, he's right there, just gonna swing it, free fire it, cool. Next one, boom, got him down. I mean, they're rocking good strats, and you can see some really good ideas coming from Makers as well. It's not just, oh, I'm better. It's just all around. They're stratting better. They're working together better. They're using intel better. They're finding gaps and holes and finding their way into the map so much faster. And now Mormon Battalion is going to have to fight them on the attack and have to try to find the same advantages that Makers were able to find for 5 rounds. 4 rounds in a row. The only round that Mormon Battalion has won, if we want to remember all the way back then, round 2. And ever since then, it has not really seemed close except for that last round.
And they're expecting Makers to play incredibly aggressively. Mormon Battalion, throughout these 20 seconds, they've taken it so slow, and at a certain point, it was kind of funny, Mormon Battalion, all 5 of them were on drones. They're not just running in, they're not just playing aggressively with their guns out. They are playing slow. They are playing disciplined. It's a very different Mormon Battalion than we have seen almost every single other game that they played. It seems like they're kind of scared of Makers at this point.
Honestly, I would be too. I would be too. If I lost a member within 30 seconds of the first round, I would be terrified the whole time. I mean, it's hard when you get into this deep of a playoff because, especially if you don't have the experience of maybe a T1 team and having this high pressure, you don't want to be the guy that makes the mistake. You don't want to be the guy that loses the round, which eventually loses the map, which loses the series, and then you're out. You don't want to be that guy. And that fear is going to haunt you, right? So now, Mormon Battalion, like you're saying, forced to take quite a lot of time. And I mean, hey, they have their hatches open, but once they get into this bunker, I mean, they're nearing 1 minute remaining and finally finding their opening pick with Toaster, finding that. And that's the only lurk from Makers.
At a minute left, though, we're talking about kind of time stalling out a little bit, but this honestly isn't all that bad because you only have you have 2 C4s and 2 toxic babe canisters, and if we think back towards Makers on their attack, with this much time, that's plenty of time to lay out those post-plant utility, actually get a proper execute going. So for Mormon Battalion, it's honestly just at this point whether you can wait out the clock and whether you can be confident in those dying few seconds of the round that your cover is there.
This hot hit is going to be quite awkward here. They use other Grimbies and their gritty locks already. They're trying to find like an opening, but it's going to be shut down from the Toxic Babes. Eli, though, finding Adam on the backside, able to get the opening pick. It's actually 2 dropping down from the hatch. Hectic opening up the round, finding 2. Swinging down towards red. It's going to be shut down, but they have the information. C4 being thrown out to save the diffuser, but it's not enough. No damage going down on Cass, who was the one to drop that down. So Tristan is now faced with a clock against him and 4 guns. A decent amount of utility. Looks like 1 smoke from Capital. And a lot of weaponry to face here. Tristan really does just need to bring a miracle, but I mean, this just seems impossible. I mean, look at the angles. Eli, though, giving him a freebie, but that's the only charity that the battalion might give him here. known for their charity, though. We love to see it. Some checking towards the verticality, but it's not enough. Xer there finally from the main breach, able to take him down. And okay, maybe this is an attack-sided bank. What do you think, your Irish?
What I think is that Mormon Battalion actually did exactly what we saw out of MKERS. Even in those in that less than a minute left with the defense having smoke canisters, having C4s, and so much post-plant, or sorry, so much plant denial utility. For both of these teams, the win condition is every single time they're going for a plant from CC side, they have a lurk either drop down hatch or play from garage side. So taking that space, playing aggressively towards Red Hall to stop the plant denial utility from even coming in the first place, while sticking the plant and trusting the cover. Mormon Battalion kind of taking a play out of Maker's playbook.
I love it. And with a little bit of Mormon Battalion flair there too. I mean, I feel like MKERS would probably be using that verticality to their advantage as a way to defend the bomb, but instead of Mormon Battalion using it as a means of we're gonna drop and we're gonna get 3 frags off rip. Hectic is gonna go crazy. Our sub of all players is gonna get 2 kills, and I believe it was also Cass finding that opener as well. Right? That's the Mormon Battalion that we've been thinking about, that we've been imagining in this server. That aggressive, just making bonkers plays that like shouldn't work. I mean, dropping down Red Hatch, really, I feel like that should not work, but it won, right? That's just the Mormon Battalion way, and if they keep that aggression going, keep that pace going, and keep the alt chat going that we're seeing now from Eli, hey, I mean, we might have a map on our hands. But going to the first floor here, open area. This is kind of where it really is going to be proved if they have a chance or not.
Not to get too ahead of ourselves, though, because MKERS is still 3 rounds up and only 1 away from match point. So at this point, MKERS are still very much in the driver's seat. Still have every advantage available to them. And at this point, with 3 C4s in their pocket and a ton of info utility, almost, yeah, every single one of these operators besides Mute gives info towards these defensive members, and 3 C4s to play off of that info as well. For Mormon Battalion, you're going to need to be incredibly careful as they walk into the building, and they're doing just that. They avoid a C4 from Hectic and get the 2 opening kills that they need to shut down this defense. And already, MKERS are looking to fight back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Getting that audio cue of Cass repelling in. Going to be shutting down the buck, but still having to face some members of Battalion outside of Square through the soft wall. But it's Giddy able to pick up a second Hectic, able to shut down one, and why not get a second one? A little cherry on top here. Bino is going to be left alone towards open area. Forced to face some players towards Printer. And a lot of pressure towards Square. And a minute 15 remaining for the Mormon Battalion. And 6 drones available to scout him out.
That was an interesting play, and I'm not gonna go into it. I'm just gonna say interesting, because for MKERS, you have a ton of info utility. You have a ton of things to play off of, but instead of doing that, and instead of playing for a C4 win condition and kind of playing a little bit further back off of your info utility, they just play aggressively and leave Bino in a 1 versus 3 that's completely unwinnable. For MKERS, I'm not sure what the play was there, and what the win condition they were thinking was going to happen was.
Well, I'm sorry. Every time, man. I don't know why. It's so funny to me, but maybe I'm 12 years old. But I will say, I said it in previously when I was getting ahead of myself, talking about the win condition of the attacking side of Mormon Battalion, and it's what we talked about in the pre-show. Xer getting those opening frags. Going into this, he was 22-3 with entries. Here, immediately within Iana, able to take down 2, open up the round, get some, a lot of information as well with those Iana drones, opening up the members like Hectic to be able to start to flush the rest of them out. And now Xer on that Finka that I was talking about previously. They've got a lot of alt chat happening as well. This is the Mormon Battalion I've been waiting for, guys. Irish, I know I'm gonna get ahead of myself, but this bank is a little bit more competitive than we were making it out to be.
It was like, I'm still on that last round with 3 traps and a ton of and a Valkyrie to play off of as far as info. Losing 2 opening picks is just as fantastic as it is for Exer to find a gap like that, it should not have even existed to begin with. And
Oh
for
my.
Hitman, you're
Uh-oh.
running out of the building. It nets you a kill, but once again, with an operator lineup like this, you should really just be staying in and playing a little bit more passively. Yep, that's
Okay.
a cutoff for Hectic, and now he's going to be on cams for the rest of this round. There's enough cams to go around for him, but still, I'm a little confused that they keep going for these aggressive plays. They keep fighting in 50-50 scenarios, and they keep giving Mormon Battalion abilities to play from an advantage that they never should have.
Because I feel like that's also what Mormon Battalion wants. They want you to get scrappy. They want you to stoop down to their level almost and fight them because they know that that's their environment. That get into the mud with me. Get into the mud. Let's fight. Let's wrestle. And that's exactly what Makers are doing. Able to trade that out. Also, of all members to be shut down, it's the IQ. So what are you really missing? I mean, now it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find these Captain Traps, find the Valkyrie Black Eyes, find the Fenrir F-Knots. Right? But I mean, I would rather lose that than losing my Selmas, than losing my Twitch drones, my Kludge drones, even my 2 Logic Bombs. A lot of great utility to go off of. And I mean, if Dokkaebi is able to hack the phone of Hitman, which I'm pretty sure they did as well, those black eyes are pretty much useless for both sides.
Either way, for Mormon Battalion, they're lurking one in from the basement, as well as having control up towards this 3rd floor, looking to pinch horizontally after taking all the space on the opposite 2 floors. With 1:10, they need to start working this area towards site, as they still have not found a foothold towards site.
Makers all tucked into sight, like you're talking about. Giddy's probably going to be the first person to see some enemies, and he's actually going to be shot down immediately. Hectic finally opening up the rest of this late round, trying to find something through the soft, but honestly just making noise for the rest of his teammates to start getting some footholds into this map here. Gonna be 2 and open, and then Bino alone in staff. He does have some defenses of a couple mute jammers to play with and a nitro if they choose to use it, but it's Eli shutting down Adam from the vert. So now they're alone. Both Makers members are gonna fight for their lives. Some Selma charges gonna put some pressure towards open, but the mute jammer is going to shut it down, and Bino, with an aggression, is going to be shutting down the Selmas. Cass, shut down Toaster alongside with them. Bino, heating up a little bit, and has the Mossberg to shoot away the low HP members of Mormon Battalion, and the timer is not very friendly. 4 seconds remaining. Hectic needs to find something, has the case, and doesn't find the time. Makers stall out the time like you were talking about before. And it is quite successful against Mormon Battalion.
But it's still off of hero plays. For Mormon Battalion, they took it slow. They got the refrag off of a run out from Hitman that shouldn't really have happened. And in the mid round, as we were getting towards that site hit and as time was slowing down and kind of seeming to get away from Mormon Battalion, they just hold cutoffs, take Giddy off of the board on his flank towards the kind of tellers area, and get a few picks towards site. That suddenly means that it's so much more doable to just take off of that. It all comes down to just Bino getting a double kill and Tristan staying alive in a 1 versus 1, even though he did go for the swing. For Makers, you're still making so many mistakes. It's your match point, and you're looking to kind of put Mormon Battalion at the back seat, take control, but still you're giving them so many opportunities.
Oh, and hey, I mean, Mormon Battalion will take those opportunities. They'll love to take those, but this time they're gonna be trying to maybe play more of that bunker style. But in the basement, the lack of smoke might concern me. They do have the Goyo, but with the Twitch that they were showing off before, it's an interesting play. They don't have a mute or anything, so if Mormon Battalion chose to go with the Twitch and try to knock out those Goyos, those Vulcan canisters, that could have been scary. Mormon Battalion, though, not choosing to do that. Actually giving Xer back onto that Finca that I was talking about before and letting Cass play an IQ. Which was something that was quite confusing for me before Irish, was seeing Xer on the IQ, because I just feel like you can't really entry if you're also like trying to find the utility and being that kind of soft support that IQ is. So I kind of like the way that these operators are going to be positioned for each other here.
It's also just sometimes played for the gun. But either way, Mormon Battalion not having a Twitch and going up against a a Jaeger, it's great for clearing out that utility, but also going up against a Mira and a Goyo without a Twitch for Mormon Battalion is just going to make it incredibly difficult because that's, I mean, depending on how many you stack up, that could literally be a full minute of plant denial with 3 Goyos towards plant. And with the Miras still up late round by you not having the Twitch, that single operator choice might spell disaster for Mormon Battalion.
Also, one thing that is going to be spoiler for me, wow, Giddy being shut down from a quick aggression of Eli through tunnel. But somebody that I'm going to be watching this round is going to be Bino. We see it on your screen here, tucked into blue stairs with a deployable shield, has a Mossberg, has a Vulcan canister to play off of, and a Jaeger. That's a pretty scary position. I mean, I've seen Pengu get a whole ace on those stairs, and it's going to be a shutdown of Exer trying to do a fast drop. Hectic is going to go down with his teammate as well. Toaster was able to take down Bino, that player that I was talking about before, so that's blue stairs control. But where's the pinch? There's no pinch because the gold players were shut down immediately, and Cass is still playing towards square, but what utility do they really have to start opening up and trying to make something happen? They have a frag with Cass, so maybe they can try to get something going, but it's just going to be a little bit of a brick going from Hitman to Toaster. And now it's getting a little bit toasty. Cass trying to find, I mean, really just needs to get something going, but it might just be lights out for Bank. It might just be a 7-3 going towards MKERS, and they might just be talking about Cafe right now. Is able to pick up one, but hit down quickly trades that out. MKERS finding the 7th round of Bank, their map choice. And honestly, quite swiftly, I would say, Irish.
A lot of gaps given towards Mormon Battalion, but at the end of the day, the individual skill of MKERS is just too strong. When it gets down to those 1vx's, when it gets down into those do-or-die positions, time after time, players like Tristan, players like Bino, players like Adam are just winning round time after time for MKERS. 7-3 on their map pick, and it's just going to be so hard for Mormon Battalion to fight back.
We were talking about previously Adam versus Exer. Exer showing up a little bit, but also Eli trying to fight back a little bit. But so far, Mormon Battalion, I mean, they have little sparkles, they have little glimpses of hope. But so far, Irish, nobody has really stepped up to the plate to take down a giant like the Goliaths of MKERS. And so now, as we're going into Cafe, with that momentum not really in their favor at all, MKERS seem like they're really playing with their food, honestly, at the end of that map. This is going to be a really scary Cafe for Mormon Battalion, but we'll just have to see. We're going to take a quick break before we see that, though, so don't go anywhere. Maybe stretch your legs a bit, but we'll be right back for map 2. Alrighty, guys, we are back, ready for map 2 of Makers versus Mormon Battalion in the XGS semifinals. It's your boy T-Van, joined by Irish. We're seeing some of the clips of map 1, which was the, quite the,
Yeah, no, that's fair.
quite the disaster, one would say. Maybe a bank heist is maybe a funny joke, you could say, but as you can see from these highlights, it was a slaughter.
Yeah, it was kind of more Battalion playing their own way, and then Makers halfway through the game realizing, oh shoot, we can just fight them, and then running out every single opportunity they had, having good setup, good ideas, and then just jumping out of a window and going 1-2. For both of these teams, they're just running around, and when it comes down to individual skill, Makers, at least on bank, was just better.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the matchup previously of Adam versus Xer, and I mean, it just seems like Adam is really just taking the map away. And this is really unfortunate because I will reveal some things that maybe happen behind the scenes, and I don't really like to do this that much, but I am technically like a part-time coach for Mormon Battalion, and by coach, I mean I just give them some inspiration, and I'll share with the cast today what I inspired them with today. Today's verse is Xer 4-2. Thou shalt outfrag Adam. I sent that to them before the map, and it does not seem they're listening to me. So, I don't know if they can make a fast improvement for Cafe, but I really hope they can, because if not, I don't think we're gonna get to map 3, Irish.
I don't think the Lord was on their side, because besides a few times that Makers just kind of gave them an opportunity to get back into the round, Makers just looked better round after round, individual skill for individual skill, because again, we were talking at the very beginning of this matchup that both of these teams have lost their IGL, so it is kind of going to come down to gunfights. It is kind of going to come down to hectic 50-50s, and unfortunately, namesake player was just not winning as much as the T1 talent that Makers were bringing.
Yeah, it's hard to rely on a roster full of like heroics, one might say, of just like, all right, somebody frag out this map, and then I don't know, someone else frag out the next map, and then we'll win and we'll get to semifinals of XGS. It turns out the counter to that matchup, I know Irish, we've been talking about theory a lot in Siege, and we've learned about rock paper scissors theory. It now seems that if there's rock paper scissors, the Mormon Battalion way of one person just drops 20. The counter to that is having a T1 roster. So news to me. Personally, I'm learning the game with you and with you all. But hey, who knows? Maybe Cafe, they'll bring it back. This is their map pick. We can chalk it to Makers. Being, you know, that was their map. That's their bank. Mormon Battalion didn't practice it. And I'll huff some more copium for Mormon Battalion.
I mean, we were talking about theory, we were talking about, how to counter the playstyles of both of these teams. And I think all that theory went out the window with Hitman, and it's kind of just been a 50-50 gunfight fest since that. Makers, even though for the first kind of few rounds they were playing slower and they were trying to kind of actually genuinely counter the playstyle that Mormon Battalion were bringing out, halfway through the map they realized, actually, we don't even need to do that. We can just kind of run at them, play 50-50s, play gunfights, and that could be a win condition as well, because we're going to win more rounds than we lose, and when they got up 4-1, that's all you really need to do. So going into this map, they have the map advantage, and I honestly think it's just going to keep being more of the same, because when you have that fallback of saying, okay, even if we, troll a few rounds, worst case scenario, we lose this map, we go to a decider, and on Clubhouse, a slow, clear, very structured team of Makers is going to beat Mormon Battalion 10 times out of 10.
Yeah. I will say though, Mormon Battalion has been showing a decent amount of life of adaptations. We saw that when they won round 2 against Makers. They quickly identified that Makers was playing the same kind of strat going into the basement and playing the same post plant, and they identified that. They counter stratted really on the fly, countered it, got the win. And also in these bans that we just barely saw, Mormon Battalion taking off a pretty crutch pick that Makers was utilizing quite a lot on that previous map of Bank, and taking out the Capitao, which I think is super smart. They were playing that Capitao on that post plant, on that really late round execute. And I mean, if you don't want to bring the Warden every round to potentially counter the, okay, put Capitao smoke down and we're going to get a cheeky little plant down and play post, I think taking it off the board is perfect, especially with the Ying off the board as well. It's going to make a couple of the strats that Makers might have in their pocket a little bit nullified.
I think that's a fantastic point that, yeah, it was on seemingly like every single was just bringing the Capitao, and it was working to great effect. We saw one of those early few rounds on their attacking side. Adam got a 1 versus 2 because he was just super comfortable with the utility, got himself into the right position. But Makers are starting on defense, and for right now, it seems like it's really working out for them because they just open up a hatch, get a C4, and get opening pick, and they're just slippery enough to make it back to those mirror windows without giving away a trade and without giving away any opportunity for more Battalion to find a battle back.
Yeah, that cheeky little C4 is going to find the kill on Twitch. So these mirror windows are going to be looking quite safe. And it is that first floor hold, which we've been seeing pretty popular here in like the T1 scene and Tier 2 scene, with Wildcard Restart happening, Element 3 happening. Second floor has been a very common pick as the primary target rather than a second floor or excuse me, a third floor. I always get confused with cafe sometimes. But usually, you know, default is third floor. That's the primary. But Makers showing out the first or second floor, and Mormon Battalion so far shut down immediately. And I don't know if they have as many strats as Makers do to be able to shut this defense down.
Yeah, another pick going towards Makers as well. And yeah, I remember back when. Oh my God. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
I was gonna talk about the meta evolution of this map, but it doesn't even matter because Makers taking the gunfight to Mormon Battalion, and kill after kill is going their way. Makers with a defensive round 1, and that aggression just keeps coming through. Their setups are good, their utility play is fantastic, getting a C4 opening, but just like I was expecting, as soon as Mormon Battalion step foot in the map, Makers are just swinging them player after player after player, an opening round for Makers.
Yeah, it also just kind of felt like they just lured them into exactly where they wanted. They're all playing towards top red. I mean, we see Exer here in this replay, the remaining member of Cigar, seeing all of his comrades fall down those stairs. Yeah, I mean, hey, if you're good on the site, then might as well keep hitting it. Seems like we're going to be going towards library mining instead of, or excuse me, dining this time instead of the library. So it's going to be a pretty similar defense, and I'm curious to see what Mormon Battalion does to adapt to this kind of attack.
Yeah, I remember back when mining dining was kind of a troll pick, and one of the things that I was talking about recently with my roommate actually was the fact that this map actually has seen quite a bit of meta evolution. It's one of the oldest maps in the kind of map pool to not be reworked, but to still kind of be active in the map pool. And despite some people saying that it's stale, things like mining dining getting worked into the meta is, in my opinion, incredibly interesting, because you have completely different types of holds. You have these kind of mid-floor holes be completely renewed and completely repopularized as Makers hold the entirety of the mid-floor with an extension up top. This is the new default. This is what you should expect out of Cafe. Mormon Battalion on repels with 30 seconds in are still looking to get into the map, looking to find a foothold after not quite getting an opening off of a pre-fire.
Sorry, I do have to point. I'm gonna be that guy. Bino did use the wrong who's. So just did have to point that out real quick. Anyway, but
Some
yeah,
Mormon education.
I do want to say it's. Well, wait. It was Bino that said that. It was Bino that said that.
Oh, my bad.
Come on. But hey, I mean, meanwhile, Flashbang, Xer taking down Giddy, shutting down the teammate of the Misspell. Comcast is going to be using the Dokkaebi Logic Bomb. Crazy, I thought we banned that operator. Unfortunate. But it is going to be Mormon Battalion starting to work down and get into the building. Something that they struggled with previously. And they have a lot more time on their hands to use that space. Makers so far, I mean, they have the util to play off of. It's up to the gaps that Mormon Battalion might find to insert themselves in the site.
They've already spotted a gap with that opening pick, and with the cap can taken off the board. You do have those passive traps still on the board, but losing a C4 and losing that mid-round gun is going to be incredibly impactful unless Makers stay aggressive and even it out. A 4 versus 4 as Adam finds a pick towards Mormon Battalion. But at this point, they have full control over top floor and are really, really putting a lot of pressure towards these site-holding players of Makers. With hatch open, some of them might even drop and play for a late round flank, but that's gonna have to be the win condition.
But my eyes right now are on Eli. He snuck into first floor, was playing up towards reading a little bit, but is still stuck into white stairs. Looking like he is going to be exiting out, trying to try to play for that second floor window. Going to be shot off immediately from Adam. Unfortunate that window. Like, if he had that panel just a little bit more open, he might have been able to spot Adam on that corner. Tristan finding some aggression. Going to be forced down to first floor to coat, looks like, but no members of Mormon Battalion are there to punish it. Hectic, though, finally punishing Adam. Hitman, though, able to get the frag, trying to get the support down, and then with the super shorty, able to take down Cass or Hectic for the hell of it. Why not? Hitman on a tear. And once again, Xer, who we've been talking about as the entry frag, is left once again alone. Tristan, though, somebody that was forced down red, lurking back up brown, able to get the knife from the back, take down Xer. Mormon Battalion starting to fumble on this attack.
I was expecting Adam and Hitman to drop, and obviously that was the exact same thing that Mormon Battalion were expecting as well, because they don't clear the corner, they lose one on the rappel, and after getting the swing, after getting the trade on Adam, they still don't expect that player of Hitman to be lurking in the corner. He finds one off of a swing, and then finds a second pick with a super shorty as well. And even in the very dying seconds of that round, the feet were not spotted by the last member of Mormon Battalion, so Tristan could have easily gotten a 3 from that corner and just shut down Mormon Battalion. But either way, even after finding opening, it seems like the continued aggression, the continued mid-round aggression of Makers, and just giving Mormon Battalion those 50-50s, the win condition is still they're gonna win more 50-50s than not because of the individual strength. Strats, very important. Putting the mirror in the right position is sure nice, but when it comes down to it, even after losing opening, even after giving Mormon Battalion so much time and space on the third floor to work vertical with that advantage, when it comes to 50-50s, Makers is just going to win time after time. And I hate to keep saying it, but that's just what they keep doing.
Yeah, it really, oh my god, and now he just gets away with it. I mean, like, yeah, it's hard not to bring it up when it really is just a crutch that they're using, right? Mormon Battalion, I mean, they're fighting for scraps, but those scraps aren't able to be collected into anything to piece or snowball or even find a foothold into this map at all. And this is their map. We have to remember, if I remember the band phase, like, there were a decent amount of maps that were open and available that Mormon Battalion could have brought Makers to, but like you said, a lot of these players have T1 in experience, and I think one thing that, like, not a lot of people think about is all these players scrim against the best of the best on these maps. They just have a higher knowledge of it. Compared to Mormon Battalion, I mean, I don't know what their scrim schedule is looking like, but I don't know how often they're going to be facing the T1 teams compared to the likes of Makers, right? So it's just like, it's hard. You're seeing the gap of experience, of knowledge. They just have one step ahead. They have that extra layer of an onion that they're able to digest. And Mormon Battalion is starting to fumble from it.
But also, benefit of the doubt, Makers is on defense on Cafe. This is one of the more defensive-sided maps, and it's been that way for its entire history. With another pick for Makers, still traded out for Mormon Battalion, but Makers maintaining the man advantage. And we've seen time after time they don't even need that. But even as they continue to put rounds on the board, we have to keep reminding ourselves it's defensive half on Cafe. It's defensive half on Cafe. If you, like T-Van, are holding out hope for Mormon Battalion, I think you can just hold on for a little bit longer, even if things continue to get away from them on this defense.
One someone that's not going to hold out any longer is Hitman towards Cigar. In and out, the eyes are towards Cocktail. Tristan is going to be the first to be down, but Giddy's able to trade it out. Xer being shut down. So both the members of Mormon Battalion still stuck towards Cigar. A story that we've seen so many times attacking towards third floor. The Cigar control versus Cocktail control. And it's going to be a flood through bar. Cast shut down to their knees. And there is the C4 to shut it down. Toaster with the Glock and his Rari able to take down Dino and finds himself in a 1v1. But it's an MPX versus a pistol. This seems really dangerous. And with 15 seconds remaining, I don't know how much you can really clutch this one out, Toaster. Especially with that Mira giving some information for Giddy that you don't have. The hop through, the deployable camera. It's going to be a swing, but it's all a waste of time. Giddy shutting it down finally with a headshot. Mormon Battalion just can't get anything here on Cafe.
You do everything right for Mormon Battalion on your attacking side. Even after giving up opening pick, you still battle back, you fight your way into the map, get a ton of space, get a ton of area, trade out man count, and suddenly you find yourselves in a 3 versus 3. Everything is going your way and you have so much space. But it comes down to a 1v1. And time after time, I know it's such a belabored point, but in a 1 versus 1, in a 1 versus X, MKERS, I'd be like, they've lost like 1 or 2, obviously, but it seems like every time we're in a prolonged 1vx situation, even if it seems mostly unwinnable for MKERS, they just keep doing it. They just keep making the impossible happen. And 3-0 up against Mormon Battalion, I know I was saying you could hold out hope, but in a round like that, that's just heartbreaking.
And on the tertiary site too. I mean, like you're kind of talking about before of the adaptations and changes to the map of the meta of the map. The tertiary site being what was the primary site feels quite bad, right? Because that site was already pretty locked down and secure. So, oof. I mean, I don't know, man. They really do just need some sort of miracle, some maybe caffeine boost or something. But, I mean, I don't know how much I could say, but I don't know. The Mormon Battalion can really drink any coffee right now due to that religion. So MKERS have that advantage as well. I don't know. I'm just trying to get something cooking, but it just really does feel like the light is starting to fade and there's not that much life that Mormon Battalion is giving us to have that hope for them.
They do have the Monty to play off of, though, and that is an incredibly impactful operator. One of the things that we, as casters, always talk about is whether the Monty is banned or whether he's still on the board, and especially for a map like Cafe, he's such a strong pick now with that rework. So, you let a few rounds get away from you, you go 3-0 on your attacking side, the adaptation doesn't work because you swing completely solo from New Hatch and try to take a 50-50 against a team that's notorious for winning them time after time. I have hope. I point out things that might possibly win them around, but I guess for Mormon Battalion, they just want to keep taking the 50-50s.
Yeah, and that's just like the mental chalk, but also the lack of IGL and the comms, right? I mean, maybe they have the coach of XGS able to support them, but no, the Monty's dying to the Captain trap. So there goes that linchpin immediately off the board that you're talking about. There goes all that discussion and amazing analysis. Just gone. So now it's just up to some more aggression, but it's actually just gonna be met with a flashbang. Toaster able to find one, maybe find a second through the soft wall, but nothing just yet. It's gonna be a prone, and the prone allows the bailiff to shut it out, having that Surya gate to help out as well. Yeah, Mormon Battalion, they're struggling. They're struggling quite a bit. I mean, it really just feels like they're pulling hairs to get 1 or 2 kills while MKERS are just playing team deathmatch at this point.
And this is the perfect time for a timeout because there was an adaptation at the Mormon Battalion. They made the right choice of, okay, they're just running at us. They're just giving us 50-50s and we're just kind of losing them. So the adaptation to bring in the Monty is perfect. That's the right idea. You play behind this moving deployable shield essentially that's giving you callouts the entire time. You have the info. You're swinging off of info and you can safely take space. That's exactly what you need against MKERS because even though they have these incredibly intricate utility setups. They're not playing off of them, they're just swinging. So the counter of the Monty is perfect, but then they just completely forget it, swing off of New Hatch, give Makers a 50-50, lose opening, and then are forced into an aggressive push without enough drones and without enough knowledge of Capcan traps to allow your Monty to stay alive, and another round slips away from you. I like the timing of the timeout because things are really getting away from you, but I don't even know how you fix it at that point.
And I will say, once again, a little bit of a sneak peek from what the viewers can't see. Looking at the XGS server, it does look like XGS is actually in the call there. In the team call for MORMON Battalion, obviously server muted when it's in the rounds, but was able to talk to his teammates that he is usually the IGL for during that timeout. He was the one that called for the timeout as well. And so, actually, I feel like MORMON Battalion have a decent chance. They have something to latch onto to maybe, I mean, maybe something XGS might find and give them some knowledge that they aren't seeing, maybe a gap that they haven't been able to see just yet. We'll have to see. And this is kind of the round to prove it. I hate to say it, Irish, but I feel like if they lose this round, they might just lose the series, and they're probably just going to be knocked out of XGS, and Makers will just be our second finalists for tomorrow.
Can't say it's unexpected though. For a T3 tournament, if you have Makers in it, it's one of those teams that you just expect to be in the grand finals every single time. Up against MORMON Battalion, it's kind of just unfortunate to be put on the same side of the bracket as a team like Makers. So for this round, again, like you were saying, this is an incredibly important round to keep yourself alive, and doing that much damage to Giddy is important to push him back from the aggressive play that I know he was going for, but not getting the pick and not putting the fear of God into Makers after a timeout is going to be something that just continues to allow Makers to run away with things and run around the building.
Giddy, though, does have that stim shot to take him back up to full, so yeah, he's knocked off that aggression, but the HP isn't going to be anything permanent. So MORMON Battalion, though, playing it a little bit slower this time around, kind of poking and prodding, trying to see if Makers gives them anything for free. I mean, we've seen it before, and you've been talking about it a lot, of those 50-50 plays. So far, they haven't gone for anything. They're waiting and trying to formulate a plan as a team, and I feel like that's what XGS was probably just talking to them about. There probably wasn't that specific strat or specific thing that Makers is doing, but more to the side of, hey guys, you guys are not playing as a team. Lock in, talk to each other, and work with each other with your utility. And we're going to start seeing that Bino is forced with a lot of pressure, and he's going to be shut down by Cass outside the balcony. Bakery roof position is such a powerful spot for this train. Mining site, so MORMON Battalion able to get this man advantage, but it's up to the conversion. What can they find? And so far, it's Eli being shut down by Tristan, but Toaster might be able to find one, and he does. It's the refrag. Tristan, that aggression, shut down. But Adam's still lurking, still an unknown, still question mark for MORMON Battalion, and as they start to slow down, they do need to find this vigil on the lurk.
It's going to be the incredibly... actually, no, he's not even really that far lurking. For Makers, they're all just kind of set up in this singular position of Giddy being underneath New Hatch, Hitman playing that 90 Hall, and Adam playing in Fireplace. They're kind of just shoulder to shoulder, and as one falls, the next gets into a gunfight, another falls.
Oh my
and for
God.
MORMON Battalion, they put one on the board after the timeout. It seems like the adaptation was open up, hold crossfires, and wait for Makers to swing and make a mistake. And kill after kill after kill goes their way, because as they cut off the rotating members of Makers, they just completely shut down the rotating aggression of the defensive team. Every rotate, every player trying to walk back after getting a kill was shut down. Bino was put on an island early on, and suddenly all the rest of the players were locked off of their rotates as well. MORMON Battalion, a completely different look, and obviously the perfect adaptation for them as they put one on the board against Makers finally.
I mean, hey, you know what? If they've been praying for 4 rounds in a row, The timeout happens. They're finally given the answer that they've been praying for, and it's XG's words of wisdom bestowed upon them and immediately converted into a round. That's not something that you can say for a lot of teams, though, Irish, is converting that post-timeout round. Because it is that double-edged sword of, okay, I have time to talk to my coach, but they have time to talk about, what they're, what they're struggling with or strategizing or counter-stratting, right? It's that double-edged sword, and I was worried for them. It's MKERS. They probably have some better things to talk about, but I was proven wrong. XGS might just be the best timeout coach ever. Potentially. I don't know. But they get one round, 100% win rate of timeout to round after conversions. Probably not a stat that XGS is looking forward to. But hey, I'm rocking with it. And immediately Giddy is able to get a run out, get one kill. And he got out scot-free. Awesome. Yeah, cool. Okay, just kidding. I ate my words. Eli with his first frag on the board, trading out Giddy. Beautiful frag, and MORMON Battalion starting to get that luster back onto them.
And the thing for MKERS, though, is that you're talking about MORMON Battalion had the opportunity to talk to one of the players that they have played with for such a long time, that IGL, that strong calling figure in their team. And for MKERS, they actually just recently lost their coach Sublik to Luminosity, if I'm not wrong, because Vivid and Mossy both went to C9 Beast Coast. But MKERS, even without being able to talk to a coach, they're keeping up their aggression, and the trades out of MORMON Battalion that were there for the entirety of last round seem to be going to the wayside for this round, because at this point, one run out gets punished, but a second was completely unexpected and a man advantage for MKERS as we go into our mid round.
Flash is going in, trying to root out the aggression of Cigar. It's Adam, though, still trying to get a little bit aggressive, still putting that phantom pressure with this deployable shield, shutting them down, trying not to give them as much space as they might want. Xer, though, taken down to 1 HP, still contesting the angle a little bit, still teasing him, trying to waste some time, but it's Cocktail that they have to figure out. It's Bathroom. They really only have top red to work with. They still have Freezer to work with, too. I think if MORMON Battalion might be able to sneak over to white, but they don't have any time here, Irish.
And with 55 seconds left, they're forced into an execute against the perfect Mira setup for MKERS. And we've seen them time and time again, even with those mirrors blocked off, even with all the utility taken away from them, they win rounds based off of pure gun skill. So think about the amount of damage they can do with all of that late round utility as well.
And Xer is going to be the tip of the spear, finding one, that entry frag that we've been talking about a lot, and Hectic is able to get one as well. The C4 does trade out Xer, but it's going to be a 2-2 as the dust settles. Some DMR shots from Toaster is going to start to stray them away, but Hectic is still playing the flank from Bar. So they're going to try and pinch, but it's MKERS working together. Bino able to swing out, take down Toaster, and now Hectic. Very isolated position, holding still. I think his mouse DC'd, or maybe it's just, maybe that was God intervening, not letting him play the game. But quite a poetic way to end that round and end his offensive half.
5-1. Unfortunate for MORMON Battalion, because at that round after the timeout was just so different from them, and it looked like for this round, despite the continued aggression out of MKERS, the runouts continuing and opening pick going towards them, the trades looked like they were on point because they shut down that initial runout for MKERS. But as we get down into another runout for MKERS, and especially towards that late round, the players of MORMON Battalion, even shoulder to shoulder, even right next to each other, were just not trading and not holding the proper cutoffs like they were on the second to last round they ended up winning. So a 5-1 half for MKERS, and all that separates them from being grand finalists is 2 more rounds on a map that they seem so determined to win.
And unfortunately to say, I don't know how much gas MORMON Battalion have to provide anymore. I don't know how much more they could really give to this map. It just does. It seems like they have ran out of everything. They had a life that they brought to this tournament. They had that kind of aggression. I mean, the all chatting as well, but like, they had something. You could feel it in the server. You could feel it while you're playing. Right now, this just feels empty. It just doesn't feel like they have that, you know, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, Irish. It just doesn't feel like the boys have their heart in it, I think. And now, but hey, Cass is going to shut me up, take down Tristan, but the Lion Scan is going to maybe catch them out. Does pick off Cass, or does ping Cass, and pings Xer. So it's going to be some pressure towards VIP, but they're going to slow it down and try to get Giddy more into a spot. But Eli says, oh, you back off? I'm going to throw you right back to the Wolves. Adam shut down that fragger that we've been talking about a lot. And MKERS forced back to their spawn. And might try to find an audible here mid-round.
They have all of the info, but it does not matter because MORMON Battalion, just like MKERS on their defense, are staying aggressive. Aggressive. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. Continuing to swing gunfight after gunfight, and unlike their attacking side, everything seems to be going their way. That's the Cali shut down by an SMG-11 on what I have to assume is a long-range gunfight, and a 5-2 as far as man count for MORMON Battalion. I don't think that's something that either you or I could have ever expected given the first 6 rounds of this map.
I mean, hey, we've been talking about the meta shift of this map, right? Like, they've probably been scrimming against these higher tier teams on these second floor and third floor sites. If they take them to first floor, hey, this is our mud field. This is where we come to play. You might not play here at recess a lot, but hey, welcome to tier 3 recess, baby. This is MORMON Battalion. So they're going to be shutting them down. Still have 3 toxic babes remaining, and not a lot of space that MKERS can start to take up. Bino is going to start to explore the second floor, try to get some verticality and maybe a pinch from Red, but so far, nothing found. 1 Grimby available and a drone, but tries to find contact first before he makes his mark, but it's Hitman shut down from Bakery. It was supposed to be the pinch. He was supposed to be the red herring for that, so that Bino could be that knife in the back, but that knife is then turned into a cushion pin. Or pin cushion, excuse me, for Toaster's SMG-11. And, okay, MORMON Battalion, alright. I said that you're lacking your luster, and, they're shooting back. They re-entered the server, and they got their batteries back into their mouse, so, hey, alright. I'm down for it. Let's take it all the way.
They still need to get so many rounds on the board versus MKERS only needed to get 2. They need to get like 4 to at least confirm overtime, and MKERS only need 2. So, in all honesty, in all kind of realistic expectations, if MKERS just win the tertiary site both times, then they can just walk away with this clean slate. For MORMON Battalion, you need to be flawless on your defense against a team that is so drilled and so prepared on their attack, and especially going towards this top floor site. It's one that we were talking about the meta shifts, we were talking about kind of the mid floor sites being more key. Most of that attack comes down to taking third floor, so you give MKERS a space on the map that they're so comfortable with taking, as well as that space just being directly on site. And this seems very difficult for MKERS, or sorry, very difficult for MORMON Battalion, especially if you have somebody running out for an incredibly early jump out and not netting anything off of it.
Phantom pressure is what I would say if I huffed some more copium, and I think I just did. 5-2. You know what? Winnable. I've seen comebacks that, you know, we're at a larger deficit. MKERS, though, going to a site that they know a little bit more than previously. It's that third floor. And it's always the cocktail aggression. I'm really curious what solution they have for cocktail, because they don't really have anything to flush people out of angles, right? Usually I would see things like Grims or, I mean, sometimes even fuses to push people out of cocktail, especially that cocktail Mira. But nothing really on the side of MKERS other than maybe the utility of clutch drones. But hey, I mean, hey, if you get Cigar this fast with Hitman just entering with some droning beside him and the Lion drone and picking up the opening frag of Eli, then that solution is just found. The Mira Freezer is going to be shot out and going to be shut down.
Okay.
Hectic taken out. Toaster hiding in the back of Freezer, trying to find a little bit of an offering that Makers might find, but it's actually Hitman finding a pixel of his head, shutting him down. Finding 3 kills.
Oh my God,
might as
go
well
for it.
make it a 4th. Cass, though, is going to be the 5th kill. Giddy, a fake friend, fake teammate, shutting down Cass, shutting down the ace. And Makers are facing match point and series point of Cafe, and they might just be looking towards grand finals for tomorrow.
I was talking about the individual skill of the players on Makers, and the names that I was coming up with were Tristan, Giddy, and Adam. Because on paper, those are the 3 players where, like, yeah, they have T1 experience. They've been so close, either top of tier 2 or like very close to, if not that level. Hitman is not one of the players that I was kind of talking about, but put a drone at his feet, and he can go absolutely insane. He is typically the lurk player for every single team that he's been on, but it seems like you put him on entry, you give him all the info that he needs, and he just rips and tears through the entirety of Mormon Battalion. Makers at match point, and you were, you know, given a little bit of faith towards Mormon Battalion, saying, oh wow, that was a nice round out of them. Maybe they can swing it back on their defense. They need to get 4 flawless rounds. And it seems like I don't know if we're too far through.
Oh my God.
Hopefully we're not too far through the round,
This is
because
quite...
that would be really unfortunate.
Xer
No,
even
that
saying
that would actually be horrific.
Xer is also saying that he wants to go play Black Ops 6 beta. So I don't think that they're gonna try to remake. I think they're just taking the L. A good entry frag there for Makers in the drone phase. Don't know how they got that, but God, they're so funny, bro. I don't know, man.
They're just shocked.
I just feel like that's just the most, like, that just really takes the wind out of yourselves. Is a Ubisoft crash, but Toaster is able to take down Adam, and the aggression of Amaru is gonna be shut down. Xer in the smoke as the Warden, just shooting him right in the butt as he tries to plant, and Toaster is able to get a kill on Hitman. It seems like, Irish, every time I say that Mormon Battalion doesn't have a chance, or think that in my head, they just win a round. Eli finding Giddy with a super shorty, and it's gonna be a hop out. Tristan is gonna be able to take down Cass on that hop out, but Xer is able to quickly trade it out through the window of White. And hey, you know what? Let's go. Mormon Battalion getting another round. Surely that's the last one, right? I mean, Hectic is out of the server. I don't know if he's coming back. I mean, they can't find any more after that, right, Irish?
See, I would say, yeah, of course. You know, obviously, with a mental chalk like that, making jokes like, oh, I just want to play Black Ops 6. Obviously, Makers are just gonna run away with it. But with a round like that, you start it in a 4 versus 5, and you're just kind of running around. Makers once again gives them the ability to fight back into the round. The Amaru plant sometimes is a good idea, but you really need to take a little bit more space before you do that. You need to have some sort of pressure towards mining window to distract those trained players so they can't just shut off plant. You need to have some sort of pressure towards White, otherwise a Warden's just going to walk down, look through smoke, and completely shut down the plant. So for Makers, obviously they're playing better tonight, and obviously sitting at 6-3 right now, they just need to win one more round. But just like we saw out of the previous map, they have the tendency and very much the ability to just give away rounds off of things like that and be like, oh no, we'll win either way, play off of their gun skill, do a strat like that without properly checking out all the boxes. For Mormon Battalion, you get all your 5 players, you do have a chance.
I will say also in the camp of Mormon Battalion, not supporting them or saying that they have a chance, because I would never say that. Trying to out jinx myself, you know.
You and I have swapped positions. You've been on Mormon Battalion this entire game, and then you're like, oh no, you're like, okay. At this point, they're done.
I'm a superstitious
devil's advocate.
Okay,
I'm over here playing the devil's advocate against Mormon Battalion, which is heresy.
Well, I'm gonna play the same. I think also once you start to kind of throw away rounds like that, there becomes that momentum of like, okay guys, like the worst thing you can say in this situation, let's say Mormon Battalion makes it 6-5, and they're like, okay guys, let's lock back in, let's just win this round. And then you lose that round, and you're like, guys, let's just lock in. Guys, we can just lock in. It's overtime. Let's just lock in real quick, and maybe find, just another, we can just win one more round. Let's just lock back in and win one more round. And then that spirals, and you're like, come on, guys. All right, let's go. Come on, guys. We can win one more round. We can just win one round, and then that one round becomes your nightmare. You can't win a round anymore, and they just keep taking it away because they have nothing to lose anymore. I've seen it so many times in Tier 4, so many times in T3. I will say, though, MKERS is that strong team, that Tier 1 almost mentality. I don't know if they're going to fall for that same trick, but that's kind of the win condition here for Mormon Battalion, I feel like.
I've seen it out of MKERS. Admittedly, I've seen it out of the Packer Kobe Woos version of MKERS, but they honestly kind of sometimes do have that ability to kind of get too frisky, get a little bit too, oh, we'll totally win this, and then just kind of run around and throw away a few rounds. Oh my god, I forget what it was for, but I distinctly remember casting them on bank, pointing out the fact that they were just swinging too aggressively and giving whatever team they were playing against far too many 50-50s. And even after a timeout, they just kept losing rounds to mistakes like that. So we talk about MKERS being this powerhouse, being this Goliath, but even they have a weakness, and even they sometimes will just throw away rounds. You're sitting at 6-3. Mormon Battalion need to be almost flawless for 3 rounds non-stop, but they can. They very easily can.
They can. And okay, this just in. There were two things that I saw happening in this chat. So I saw one option that we saw here. Okay, so we're seeing on live. They are going to continue. Hectic is on call on his phone, says he loves Spectrum, and his internet is out. I did see that people were requesting the runner of TPL, Matt, to hop into the lobby as the 5th player for Mormon Battalion, but it is quickly shut down due to Ubisoft's, lobby system. So we're going to continue Cafe in a 4v5, but hey, they won last round on a 4v5, so, why not? Let's do it. Let's see how far this goes, and it seems MKERS might just run it down once again with a silly comp.
You're dealt a 2 and a 7. They are both offsuit. You are going up against someone who never bluffs, and he goes all in. This is the situation that you're in for Mormon Battalion. Everything is stacked against you. So at this point, you need to put 3 flawless rounds on the board in a 4 versus 5 against a team that, again, people constantly say, this is Tier 1 level. This is top of Tier 2. Put this Oregon Pro League and a blitz running at your face. It just seems undoable.
Well, and unfortunately for Mormon Battalion, they are unable to gamble due to the rules of the religion, so it seems they're just going to be completely shut down. The Blitz pushing through VIP, taking down Xer, so even if this wasn't a 5v4 off rip, that man disadvantage is just going to be showing more and more. Toaster picking up 2 kills, one of them being his own teammate, but hey, a kill is a kill. I got a kill on you earlier today in a quick match, and I took that down as a kill for me on my scoreboard, so hey, Toaster will take it as well. Regression down bot red. Hitman, though, is there to take it down, so it's up to Cass. Somebody who's been pretty prevalent so far in this series, but not been shown up on the map so far. Able to get one person to their knees, and that is it. Hitman with the 5-7, able to shut down Cass. And quite the dominant victory for MKERS. A bit of an awkward ending with the tech pause, but a result that I feel like a lot of people really expected. 2-0 for the side of MKERS, and they will be advancing towards the grand finals, facing their opponents of Fluffy Aimers tomorrow.
Mormon Battalion did all that they could, but schedule and conflicts means that their IGL, one of the main players that rallies the troops for this team, was unable to play, and Comcast or whatever service provider Hectic ended up having was really that, and also the battery in the mouse. This team is just going through the ringer, and again also up against a team like MKERS, just running out at you, absolutely frying you in every 50-50. It's just impossible for Mormon Battalion to make it to the grand finals.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you did just say it perfectly, right? The deck is really stacked against you. There's so many factors going against you, and I mean, as much as there is a will, there's a way. At the end of the day, we have to be realistic. We're a battalion. I mean, this is a hodgepodge group of kids that, you know, were on 2 different squads that wanted to group up for a season, and they face off against a roster like MKERS, who just barely got off of Element, got off of Wild Card. That's just not a roster that you can really fight. There's a difference between there's that difference between tier 1 and tier 2, and they're showing that off. There is a gap in skill level, unfortunately, and as we are seeing that gap start to close in a little bit more with leagues like XGS and TPL, not quite there just yet, and unfortunately we did have to see that in the server today, Irish.
It is truly unfortunate because for the people on this team, for the names, and as well as that kind of goofy banner of Mormon Battalion, it's so sad to say goodbye to them. But once again, not an unexpected result for MKERS. Every tier 3 tournament, almost every tier 2 tournament, if they're not making a run, if they're not making it all the way to grand finals, then something is up with this team. And it seems like even after they've lost a few players, they've found their groove, and they're continuing to make it click, even without Kobe, even without Woos, and tonight, even without Packer. They've done a great job of showing what they can do shorthanded, and MKERS going to the grand final of Xenon Gaming Series.
Yeah, and just to remind everyone at home, this is the bracket. MKERS off of a very dominant start. And Fluffy Aimers, I mean, we were watching it together earlier. SSGA versus Fluffy Aimers was a really close match, but also SSGA is a really tough team. It seems like they're also kind of that cursed team that they can't get past semifinals, or maybe it's just the Mike W curse. But Fluffy Aimers versus MKERS is going to be quite the banger. I feel like they kind of complement each other in a way in the server. Their playstyles are similar enough where you can see, like, I don't know, you see similar ideas going at each other, but they execute them in different ways. So I'm excited to see what happens tomorrow. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to put the odds towards MKERS, but I really do think Fluffy Aimers have a little bit of that that dark horse chance of, like, that team that everyone was kind of counting out a little bit might be able to make something happen. I don't know what your predictions are for that, Irish.
And no, that kind of dark horse energy is the exact same thing that we saw out of them in BGS, and they ended up just sweeping through, winning the entire thing. They are on a hot streak right now. So, like you said, going up against a tough team like MKERS, some people would count them out, but if you know what's going on with them right now, it's just absolutely insane. We're talking about the continued aggression out of Mormon Battalion sometimes worked out for them, but it was always aggression plus people playing off of each other, holding cutoffs, and kind of playing shoulder to shoulder with the trades. That's exactly how Fluffy Aimers play. It's just aggression the entire time, and everyone is constantly seems to be on the same page for that team. So for MKERS, you can't really get away with the same thing you did against Mormon Battalion tomorrow against Fluffy Aimers. You need to play slow, you need to play structured, because if you give that team 50-50s, they might lose the first one, they will trade you, and they will keep that steamroll running towards site if you're playing on defense, and keep you on your toes on the attack. So it's going to be an absolute banger of a grand final either way between both of these teams.
Yeah, and my only question mark before that series even happens is, what is the roster going to look like for MKERS? Are they going to have that same core 5, or are they going to have some similar subs? Unfortunately, that was something I was going to ask them in an interview, but does not seem like we're going to be able to get that. So we'll just have to see what those answers are on the servers tomorrow. But until then, guys, that's it from the T-Van Irish cast. Irish pleasure casting with you today, and thank you to the viewers. Thank you for the production behind us, in our ears, above us, wherever they are, and thank you for tuning in, saying what's up, saying hi in chat, and enjoying some Rainbow Six Siege with us. Tomorrow, grand finals, Fluffy Gamers versus Makers. Be there or be square, and have a great night, guys.